the world is on the brink of collapse. Diplomatic talks between the US and Iran continue, but the tension is palpable. Both sides know that one wrong move could trigger a global disaster. The situation is fragile, and every military move is met with retaliatory threats. The reality of a nuclear war is becoming more apparent with each passing day, but the economic toll is far more destructive than anyone had anticipated. The global economy, already reeling from the earlier attacks, is now in freefall. Oil prices, having surged to unprecedented highs, are choking the economies of every nation. The Middle East, the backbone of global oil supply, is in shambles. The sanctions against Iran have crippled its economy, but the ripple effects have hit every country. Nations that once thrived on oil imports from the region now face an energy crisis. Gas prices in the US skyrocket, pushing inflation rates to new highs. The EU struggles with energy shortages, while Russia capitalizes on its control over natural gas supply lines to Europe. At the same time, the US faces a severe economic downturn. As businesses close and unemployment rates soar due to the ongoing conflict, stock markets, once the beacon of global economic stability, are crashing. The Dow Jones, FTSE 100, and other major indices lose hundreds of points every day as investors panic. The US Federal Reserve and the European Central Bank are forced to intervene, but their actions only provide short-term relief. People across the world are hoarding food, water, and resources, fearing that the worst is yet to come. Nations are no longer trading freely. Most countries close their borders in an attempt to protect their dwindling resources. Trade agreements crumble, and protectionist policies are put in place as each country scrambles to safeguard its future. In the midst of this chaos, the military situation escalates. The US, frustrated by Iran's unwavering stance, begins to make preparations for a ground invasion, hoping to force Iran into submission. The Pentagon has already begun moving massive numbers of troops into the Middle East. In response, Iran launches a full-scale missile strike on Saudi Arabia's oil fields, crippling another key part of the global energy infrastructure. The impact is devastating. Oil production halts across the region, and with no way to restore it, the global economy spirals further. Russia, seeing an opportunity, steps in to support Iran. Moscow uses its military might in Syria and Iraq to establish a stronger presence, ensuring that Western forces will not have easy access to the region. Russia's Air Force begins patrolling the skies of the Middle East, a clear message that any further aggression from the West will be met with force. Meanwhile, China, who has been cautiously watching the situation unfold, begins flexing its own military muscles, warning the US to avoid escalating the conflict further. In Africa and Asia, tensions rise as countries with less power or influence begin to feel the shockwaves of the economic and military fallout. Nations once neutral are being pulled into the conflict, with alliances shifting and loyalties being tested. The true horror, however, lies not in the destruction of cities or the loss of life at sea and the collapse of the global system. Supply chains that once connected the world's markets are broken beyond repair. Countries are no longer trading food, medicine, or essential goods. Instead, they're stockpiling what little they have. The impoverished nations, already struggling with poverty and instability, are hit hardest. The developing world is plunged into chaos as their governments crumble under the strain of managing a crisis they never prepared for. Refugees flood across borders, but the world is too fractured to help them. Humanitarian efforts collapse as countries are consumed with their own survival. The consequences of this nuclear exchange and economic meltdown are felt everywhere. The United States, once the global leader, finds itself crippled by internal unrest. Protests erupt across the nation as citizens demand action. The American dream, once synonymous with prosperity, is now out of reach for millions. The US government, too, faces its own collapse as the president is forced to declare martial law in an attempt to maintain control. Europe isn't spared from the chaos. The EU, unable to act decisively in the face of a collapsing global economy, begins to fracture. Countries like France, Germany, and Italy start to question the viability of the Union. Nationalistic movements surge across Europe as citizens call for stronger borders and a return to self. The European political structure, once a symbol of unity, is crumbling under the pressure of a world at war. The true tragedy is the realization that what began as a regional conflict has spiraled into what may be World War III. The world is no longer just fighting a battle of military might, it's fighting for survival. The global order is shattered. The nuclear threat, once a theoretical horror, has become a tangible nightmare, and now it feels as though there is no way back. The final toll of this war is not just measured in nuclear casualties, but in the destruction of the world as we knew it. The global economic system is irreparably broken, and nations are forced to rebuild from the ashes. It is no longer about who won or lost, it is about how much the world has changed forever. The survivors, those who live to see the aftermath, are left to pick up the pieces of a shattered world. But even as they begin to rebuild, they know that the scars of this conflict will never fade. The truth is clear now. The world has reached its tipping point. The price of war is far higher than anyone could have imagined, and it is not just a matter of geography, it is the survival of humanity itself. The global order has changed, and there is no going back. The fallout from this conflict will echo through history for generations to come.